It finally happened to me. I went to Walmart and I walked in. I did not have my phone out. I went and I got a bottle of water and I went to the self-checkout. When I got to the self-checkout, they said, "Do you want to put your phone number in to get a mobile receipt?" And I said, "No." I clicked no. And then they said, "Okay." And so I said, "Okay." And then I paid and it said approved. And I waited for it to print my receipt. And it said on the screen, "Thanks, Maya. We'll send you a receipt to your phone number ending in these digits." I thought I told you, no, I don't want one. I didn't enter my phone number, but you're just like, you just know who I am. You just know who I am. You're greeting me by name when I didn't give you any indication of who I am.
Is it just me, or does it not feel like life right now isn't real? Like, it seems like everybody is going through things right now that they've never gone through before. Almost as if like they can't recognize their life because everything's so different. Like it's not really your life, or it seems so unreal. Like things are just different. I don't know how to explain it, but let me know in the comments what you guys think.
Have you ever felt like something about everyday life in America just isn't right anymore? From rising cost and nonstop work to privacy concerns, subscriptions, scams, and technology changing the way we live, more and more people seem to be reaching their breaking point. And in this video, we're going to hear what some Americans have to say about it.
One of the hardest things about being awake is the fact that most people aren't.
Has anybody else started to reach their breaking point or a boiling point? So this is starting to look like a country that I am no longer proud to have served. I've been working my entire adult life, and I have paid half or more than half back to the government in some way, shape, or form in taxes for the past 30 years. And if you don't believe me, look up everything that you have that is taxed. State income tax, federal income tax, property taxes, payroll taxes, Medicare taxes, Medicaid taxes, sales taxes. Everything is taxed. Everything. Is anybody else getting to a point where we feel like we cannot vote our way out of this? Where does that leave us?
2026 is the pinnacle of the great millennial burnout. And it's just the accumulation of 1,000 small things. It takes 15 clicks to unsubscribe from an app that you signed up for by accident. We pay a fortune for insurance, but the moment that you actually need it, it's like 3 separate 1-hour phone calls to an 800 number that just puts you in an endless loop. Everything is a subscription now. Any organized activity or sport for like our kids costs about 10% of your annual salary. The pinnacle moments of our lives, like weddings, holidays, like the things that are so incredibly joyful and don't happen often, come just with a 200% sticker price just cause. The college degree, we were told that was meant to be a fast pass, actually turned out to be more like an entry fee. And the whole world shrunk into this like 7-inch device that's designed to command our attention 24/7, where social media stopped being about our friends and family over a decade ago. And all of this is before you even get to corporate America, which was spent basically decades deliberately blurring the lines between like hustle culture and work-life balance. So you never actually feel like you're off the clock. So like where I'm getting at with this, it's not that we've given up. We're just exhausted from a productivity complex that was instilled in us that just never seems to end. Always doing something, never feeling like it's enough.
Isn't it crazy how the more you know, the more you sound crazy to the people who don't?
Hey, quick question. Why do I have to go through Donner Party levels of trials and tribulations, tribs and tries, to not be scammed out of anything? Anywhere from a bagged salad to a haircut, to a plane ticket, to a car, to a house, to a hotel, to an engagement ring. Why do I need God tier levels of background and research and industry knowledge and a book of riddles and the first 700 digits of pi and a friend of a friend of a friend whose friend also used to be a jeweler and they know a guy? Why do I need to do that just to buy something that doesn't suck? And I'm not just talking about jewelry. The only reason why what instigated this was I just watched a 4-minute, 48-second video of a guy, of a jeweler, right, explaining to people how to spot when extremely popular jewelers, famous jewelers, not, oh, well, you bought it from Etsy, so what can you do? No, actual, real, professional jewelers that are popular, thousands of followers, not some homegrown small business, self-employed, come with me to start a jewelry shop. No, jewelers that are scamming people out of custom engagement rings. He's like, oh yeah, so they will say it's custom, but if it looks like this, but if the bevel is lower than the Badookadook, then you know you need to get out a measure. Why do I have a measuring tape out? Oh, they're drop shipping these rings. They're drop shipping engagement rings and telling people they're custom. Why is everything a scam? And I'm not just talking about rings. I'm talking about cars, houses, plane tickets, hotels. It didn't used to be like this. We are all in straitjackets rolling around a pillow-full room, pretending as if this is just normal. Oh yeah, you have to do, you didn't know you had to do 4 hours of research to get a haircut that wasn't a ripoff? No, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that because it didn't used to be like this. There used to be a Better Business Bureau and people, organizations who were held accountable. Businesses used to be afraid of being sued a little bit more because fraudulent misrepresentation is a claim you could sue them for, class actions, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't just that. It wasn't just like, oh, the only thing that we have to protect us is lawsuits. No, it used to be that this is one requirement. In order to not get scammed, like the people who were getting scammed back in the day, it was like, oh, because they wanted to save a few dollars. Right? They're going through the Etsy shop. They're going through, some, like the people who were kind of sketchy and you're taking a risk. Now, it's the opposite. It feels like, oh no, I want to go to like a legitimate jeweler, like a legitimate person, wedding dress shop, LLC, a full shebang, been around the business for a long time, have a storefront. No, like you will also get scammed that way as well.
And honestly, what stands out here is that these aren't really isolated complaints. Different people are talking about different things, but the frustration sounds surprisingly similar. Everything feels more expensive, more complicated, and harder to navigate than it used to. And as we keep going, you'll see just how many parts of everyday life people are starting to question.
Very controversial new Whole Foods in Washington, D.C. You have to scan to check in, you have to scan to check out, you have to scan to leave the checkout, and then you have to scan to leave the store.
If you think Uber raising the price on you when your phone is about to die is bad, wait until you hear this. The FTC just released a white paper on essentially how bad personalized pricing is right now, and here's one of the examples. You're a new parent, you just gave birth, so you're browsing the web looking about fucking new parenting type shit. So these massive companies collect that data, they profile you, and they put a big tag at the top of your profile saying new parent. Then they go sell it to Walmart, Amazon, whatever. The next time you go to any of these stores online, let's say Walmart, the first thing that shows up are some new baby thermometers, some new cribs, but they're all 20, 30, 40% more expensive than they would be for anybody else. So I guess the solution is let's all live in the middle of the woods with no tech.
I have a question. Why is everybody's mental health in America so bad? Why is everybody losing their shit, having psychotic breaks? Everybody has anxiety and depression. What's going on with it? Anybody have any thoughts? I do.
So if you caught my last video about my F-150, we discovered some sensors. This is the one that caught my eye. However, I later found out if you pop this little cover off here, guess what else you have? You got this little thing right here, and you got another one right here. So we're gonna see what happens if you put a little aluminum foil over it. That should do it, right? Hang on, let me get the keys. Can't forget to snap this little thing back on. Sorry, that took both hands. So there we go, hang on. All right, got that little cover back on, everything looks good. Let's take it for a little test drive. Now, I cannot video and drive. I've been in trouble for that before, so hang on. All right, it starts and drives just fine. I'm gonna drive it tomorrow and see what happens. Stay tuned, follow me. I'll make another video tomorrow, and I'll let you know if I have any problems. Thanks for watching. I also want to see if it still works. Aluminum foil, I would think, should stop that, but I'm just some redneck from Amarillo, Texas. Thanks for watching.
I think in order to understand what's happening with data centers, AI automation, and the pseudo-religious movement that's happening in Silicon Valley, which is very strange, we need to build a framework to see it as a holistic problem, right? Because you're hearing a lot about, obviously, job loss and job cutting and people wondering if they're going to have job security and if they're even going to have a job in a year. The data centers are just steamrolling across the country. without any pushback. I mean, the people are trying to push back, but there's barely any power with us anymore. And there's just a few politicians that are actually standing by their constituencies and trying to do something about it. Again, not having very limited power to do anything. These things are popping up everywhere. They're annoyingly loud. They emit tons of EMF frequencies that are not good for us and not good for the environment, and they're sucking up all the water at a time where we're having increased water crises across the country. So we have to ask ourselves who in their right mind would be pushing for all these things and why. And here's my take on it. I think that they're terraforming the planet for robots. There's a mob of people on the internet that will savagely attack you in the comments for mentioning anything that's not going well, saying you're a doomer, saying you're being overly negative, and you have some sort of mental problem that's disallowing you to see the truth of reality, that everything's actually going in the right direction. But that's just not the case, right? And it's okay to highlight the issues that are happening in our world. I know we've created this culture of keep calm and carry on, ignore all the issues, focus on the positive, but that's really, really, really unhealthy. It actually leads to the world being in a worse place than it already is. So it's really important for us to talk about the issues. I just want to put that as a side note for people. In general, those who see the problems and want to talk about it, do not be inhibited by all those people that will try to gaslight you into thinking that you're just being negative and there's something wrong with you. No, there's several real problems. There's several things that are actually wrong with the world and they're worth talking about. Okay, so side note aside, I think, yes, that they're terraforming the planet for machines. And there's a couple indications that support my argument. Let's start with data centers. They're building these data centers. We already know they're having a tremendous impact on the environment, a tremendous impact on our electricity usage, our energy usage, which are both basically were the primary pillars of the climate change movement. You know, where they were pretending to care about the climate. They were saying we need to reduce energy costs, we need to be taking care of our environment, and now these data centers are literally one of the worst things to happen to our environment in decades. Okay, so they're doing that. They're building them next to communities and driving people insane and causing there to be not only like a lack of water, but the water that's coming back is actually toxified. Okay, so why would they do this if their primary concerns were climate and their primary concerns were people, human beings? Well, they wouldn't be doing those things. And they're not doing anything to mitigate the problems that'll be created by data centers. It's one thing if data centers were providing a really an extremely important value to our society. Two things here, by the way. One is, if you were creating these data centers and they were causing these issues, you'd think that you'd be at the same time supporting other endeavors and technologies that would solve those problems. Like, for instance, desalination of seawater to increase the freshwater like in land, so that we can actually pay for this, right? So they say that you can't use seawater for the data centers. Of course not. But you could desalinate water for the data centers. So why is it that they didn't beforehand set up a system where they could increase the amount of water they have so that they could actually fund or resource these data centers with water without affecting our water supply that we need to like drink and bathe? Because they're terraforming the planet for robots. This isn't about people. You understand? It's about a very small group of people who believe that they're in charge and that they're going to live in a paradise in the future. And they're robotics and automation and AI that can take care of all the stuff for them. You understand? There's an issue when they create a technology that will create problems, but they don't, at least at the same time, if not preemptively, create the solutions to solve those problems. So one example is, why aren't they trying to come up with solutions to get more fresh water so that when the data centers come up, they're not taking from what we need? Okay, especially here in the Southwest where we have real drought issues, and the data centers are popping up all over the Southwest. I'm sure you've heard about what's happening in Utah. And so they have this vision for how the world is going to be transformed with robotics and data centers and AI automation and so on and so forth. And that vision does not include the well-being of the 8 billion people on this planet. And that's what you need to understand about this. We can have all these political conversations. We can go back and forth. Why are they doing this? And just be, completely oblivious to the long plan, the grand design. and we'll never get anywhere in the conversation. But as soon as we start admitting to ourselves that these people do not care about our health and well-being, is when we can actually start having a realistic conversation about this movement in tech.
Do you know, one of the greatest awakening moments is the moment that you realise that you cannot wake everybody up, especially when it's someone in your family. Some people, they're just not meant to wake up. That's their life path. Some people will never change. And that's the hardest thing that I think that you come to accept when you wake up. Because all this crazy shit going on around you. And it's just like, am I the only sane person who can see it all? But it's not. It's because change is a choice, not a demand. And I mean, you can inspire people, you can guide them, but you cannot walk their path. Some people are just not meant to wake up.
Look around. We're standing in the middle of the Richland Wildlife Management Area. Miles and miles of Florida wilderness with no neighborhoods or shopping centers, subdivisions or traffic lights around. Just woods, hunters, fishermen, families, people enjoying the outdoors the way that generations of Floridians always have. So here's my question. Why are there surveillance cameras here? Why are there license plate readers sitting at the crossroads of a wildlife management area? Who are they watching? The hunters? People exercising their Second Amendment rights? Families going camping? Fishermen headed to a boat ramp? Because it isn't just here. I recently drove to a remote boat ramp in the middle of the marsh. There wasn't a town nearby. There wasn't a shopping center, a neighborhood, just a boat ramp and surveillance cameras recording every vehicle coming and going. At what point did we decide that every trip into nature should be tracked? Every hunting and fishing trip, every drive through rural Florida. Some people will immediately say, those cameras help stop crime. They help stop human trafficking. And every one of us wants criminals caught. Every one of us wants trafficking victims rescued. But here's the question that no one seems willing to ask. How much surveillance are we willing to accept? For decades, law enforcement investigated crimes without building massive networks of cameras that record the movements of millions of law-abiding Americans. Technology can be a useful investigative tool, but it should never become a substitute for police work. It should never become a substitute for evidence, and it should never become a substitute for the constitutional liberties that Americans have always expected.
Is this just me, or does anyone else struggle with this? But I feel like every day I'm just tormented by the thoughts of wanting to delete all of my social media and just disappear. My brain is so overstimulated with information, and I have notifications turned off, but it honestly doesn't matter. But then I'm like, if I delete all my social media, are people going to even reach out to me? How am I going to talk to anyone? Do those people even matter anyway? What am I going to do in my free time? I don't know what to do.
After hearing all of that, I think the biggest question is pretty simple. Are we really okay with the way things are going? Maybe some of these concerns are exaggerated, and maybe others are completely justified. But one thing is clear, a lot of people are feeling frustrated, exhausted, and increasingly unsure about where things are heading. What do you think? Which one of these issues concerns you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe for more.